President Trump has signed an executive order today aimed at slashing federal regulations on small businesses. This comes as questions over President Trump's potential conflicts of interest with his own businesses linger. Earlier, I spoke to Philip Segal, a lawyer in business and legal ethics, about whether Mr. Trump could now face lawsuits.
I don't see how, because the federal conflict of interest rules about having first of all, you'd have to decide whether having debt is an emolument. If you owe a foreign government money, is that an emolument? I don't think so. Maybe you could make an argument that debt forgiveness would be an emolument. If you got to refinance debt, that's an emolument because you're being given something by a foreign party, a foreign entity. If it's a government-controlled bank, if it's a government-controlled company. But the debt itself, I don't see what the legal problem would be in having debt. If you're allowed to have businesses, the conflict of interest rule exempts the president, the vice president, members of Congress, and federal judges. Now, federal judges have their own judicial code of conduct, but members of Congress have businesses that they leave in the hands of family or that they can oversee when they're members of Congress that have working farms and vote on farm policy. The idea is that people who come to the government for a short amount of time shouldn't have to completely abandon all of the businesses that they've built up. And that's, I think, why the president, the vice president, and members of Congress are exempted from the federal conflict of interest.
Okay, but then we look at the new Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C., built on the site of the former post office there. Yeah. The federal government, though, owns the building, a federal government that President Donald Trump now leads. People, many have said, ethicists have said that as of the moment he took the oath, he was in violation of the Constitution as it regarded that. Again,
I don't know what the constitutional problem would be. There's a contract problem because the lease of the building, that's what the members of Congress were holding up, says that you can't have a government official being the tenant. However, there's a wonderful out clause. I don't know if Trump negotiated this on purpose or not, but it says, provided that this provision shall not be construed as extending to any person who may be a shareholder or other beneficial owner of any publicly held corporation or other entity. Now, Mr. Trump is not the tenant. It's a Trump-named limited liability company. So if he's a partial shareholder of this company, he could argue that this company benefits others and not just me. I'm not a principal beneficiary. For all we know, he could have transferred his interest in the LLC to his daughter by now, in which case he wouldn't be in violation of the lease. That, I think, would be his argument, and my guess is that's why the GSA canceled its announcement that it was going to make on this lease a few weeks ago. Because if you look at it, if you don't know what the shareholding structure is of the tenant company, he may have a case that he gets benefit of this rather generous out clause.
Then, as our resident expert here in business and legal ethics, we have, I think, all can agree, we have entered uncharted waters.
I agree with that.
How do you see the next 3+ years playing out legally as the president, members of his family, his administration confront issues on these variety of fronts?
There'll be a lot of lawsuits. I think the lawsuits will not end. There'll be lots and lots of lawsuits. People will talk about this. If there's any precedent at all I can think of, it's the former mayor of New York, Mike Bloomberg, who had a $20 billion empire, didn't divest himself, put it in the hands of other people. But as with Trump, he knew full well who his big customers continued to be. He's now gone back to running that company. Those customers had business with the city of New York. People didn't like it. The late Wayne Barrett, the great journalist, talked all about it. The Village Voice talked all about it. And he got reelected twice. So people who didn't like him pointed to this and didn't like it. And his decision was, hey, let this be a political problem. If you can't charge me with anything, let the voters decide. And I think that's what you're going to have with Trump. There are going to be people who hate it and are going to continue to hate it. They may even succeed in some of these lawsuits. But I don't think that you can be guaranteed that it will defeat his intentions, just as Bloomberg managed to hold on to his business.
It certainly seems, if nothing else, you and I will have much more to discuss for these next 3+ years. Philip Segal, very much appreciate the time and insight.
Thank you.